Okay, so this is not going to be a thought experiment video, but I'm going to throw it in here because I feel like it's going to be long and people need to hear it. And I'll probably edit it up and add it to my story, but in the end, it really needs to be absorbed in its whole, just because I have heard so much and I've seen so much recently about this stuff. It's honestly driving me insane. Tried to keep a positive spin on it. I've tried to keep a smile on my face, and it is hard. It is really, really hard. So I am very excited that people are embracing the vaccine and they're going and getting it. I love/hate that like putting your vaccine card on social media and Instagram has become a thing. Also that like showing your shot, like, hey, I got my shot. It's like showing your voting sticker, which it's great that you did that, but it's part of something greater, and I hope that you understand that. And I find myself in a lot of arguments recently, and let me just kind of outline for you exactly how those arguments go. Rob, you used to be one of the smartest guys that I know. I can't believe you're falling for this. I am one of the smartest guys, probably the smartest guy that you know. What is it that I'm falling for exactly? Masks, man. Why are you so obsessed with the masks? Like, it's not really doing anything for you. In fact, it's like putting that contaminated breath and trapping you in it. Uh-huh. And I mean, the reality is if I can breathe through that mask, man, it's not actually protecting me from anything. Uh-huh. And I mean, these viruses are tiny, man. Like, they're going to get in through the little gaps in that mask. Uh-huh. And you're out here talking about getting the vaccine, man? Like, you want to put that poison into you? You want to have them microchip you? Man, you want to put something in your body that's not natural? Uh-huh. You know, they rush these vaccines, man. They've been done faster than anything. They cut corners all over the place. People are getting sick worldwide from these vaccines. You're just going to end up being a statistic. Uh-huh. And I mean, that's just an excerpt. It goes on wide-ranging from there onto many topics, because I find that people hit me up when they, one, want to argue, because they know I'll argue about just about anything, and two, when they want to be proven right and they think if I can convince him of my point of view, then it actually adds some justification to what nonsense I'm spouting. So we can dive into vaccines, and I will, but let's start with masks. So I recognize that what I'm wearing, my daily mask, is not an N95 mask. It would not do if I was serving in some sort of healthcare context where I had a really, really difficult time where I thought I might get infected. There are gaps everywhere. If I blow out very hard, no, I can't feel it. I did the lighter test with this mask and it doesn't work. But when I do blow like that, you can probably see that it's moving. And I can feel it up here under my eyes. The mask moves around a bit. I did insert essentially what would be an N100 filter, which is even filters out even more particles. And I mean, I love it because for the people who are asking me these questions in public, I can make faces like, and it looks less like I'm judging you, which has been a problem in the past. But we can agree that this mask is not necessarily about keeping me safe from the germs that are out in the world. So I'm going to have to listen to see if you can even hear me with this mask on, and I'm going to take it off. But I wanted to show that I actually have this mask, and at times I do wear it. And it is a little more difficult to breathe, but it offers me 100% protection. In fact, this mask is so secure that if a chlorine bomb or another chemical agent were to go off within 10 meters of me, it would burn my eye sockets out and I would no longer have eyeballs, but my lungs would be just as fresh as they are today, which after being a smoker for nearly 20 years isn't so fresh, but undamaged from the chlorine or mustard bomb. And it also, being that level of protection, keeps me safe from coronavirus, and all viruses for that matter, and bacteria, and anything that might be spread. So what we have here are two masks. One, which keeps me absolutely safe, and as I found in my research, doesn't necessarily keep you safe. Because although it is real high filtration on the inhale, the filtration on the exhale, not so much. It's not as important. The point is to protect you and your lungs from whatever's outside. This mask doesn't do so much to protect me. It's certainly not a tight seal like this one. It's not filtered like this one. But what it does do is to protect you in large part from me. So people have been throwing around a lot of statistics, and I'm going to try not to throw a lot of statistics at you, mostly because, one, I don't understand them all, and I don't like to throw around statistics I don't understand, but also because that's boring. Why do you want to hear a bunch of numbers? How about just facts? The fact of the matter is, if everyone wore masks, even a mask like this, a very simple 3-layer cloth mask with or without a filter, mine has a K100 filter, PM 2.5 filter, then if everyone did that, we would essentially cut the rate of infection down 98%. And there's one number that I'm going to give you. Now, it doesn't do that because it's protecting me from you. It doesn't do that because it's protecting you from me when you wear your mask. What it does is it keeps my germs on me and your germs on you. And that's going to be really important moving forward. But I really want to highlight this because the fact of the matter is, everyone who's refusing to wear masks isn't saying, I don't believe that the mask doesn't work. Because I acknowledge, as a person who believes in masks, that they don't work to protect me from you. What it is a sign. It's a sign from me to you that I care about you and I care about your health. And I never want my germs or anything that I've done to impact you negatively. When I wear this mask, I want you to understand that this is not about my health. This is about protecting you from my decision. Because if I've decided to go to a restaurant, which is now open in LA, or a movie theater, which is now open in LA, or literally anything which is open in Texas without a face mask mandate, if you see me with a mask, you can know that guy is thinking about someone other than himself. And I think that's the problem, that we're having a lot of difficulty thinking of someone other than ourselves. It's all about, how does this impact me and why am I so impacted by it? And what can I do for me? Huge problem in society today. And I had this kind of epiphany. I was riding on a scooter, as I often do, as my only form of transportation from Hollywood to downtown Los Angeles. And for some of you, you may be like, oh, so you're in the city. What's that, like 5 minutes? Like, no, 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes. It's a long trip. It's a lot of travel. Los Angeles is a big city. And I had the opportunity across that entire trip to see, what does an opening Los Angeles look like? And it looks like a lot of people without masks. It looks like a lot of people sitting on a sidewalk because they've convinced themselves it's safer, even though the tables are only a foot apart. It looks like people who are trying to get back to normal. And I don't want to poo-poo on the idea of getting back to normal. We all want to get back to some semblance of normal. But I can also tell you that this year, this 12 months between when we shut down a year ago in 2020 and now, I have had the healthiest year of my life. I am learning that life pre-COVID was pretty unsanitary. Pretty filthy, in fact. Coughing around each other, just sneezing and trading bodily fluids all the time, not washing hands, not doing precautions that we should. At my office, we used to have shared snacks where these snacks were just kept in bins and people would just dig their dirty hands into the bin, get some snacks, and then whatever didn't quite make it in your hand would just fall off back into the bin to, grow and cultivate itself into a colony of bacteria. And I tried to keep those spaces as clean as possible. We clean them all the time. But what I'm learning in seeing the world after COVID is that that is not a good practice. It was easy and it was convenient, but it wasn't good and it wasn't sanitary. And I think we're going to have to, moving forward, decide, are we going to live lives that are easy and convenient? Or are we going to do things that are good and things that are healthy and sanitary? Wearing a mask whenever I am in public may become a more regular part of my life for the rest of my life, because I realize what putting that good barrier between me and everyone else is doing. Now, again, it's a sign to you from me that I care about you, and it's doing much less to help me, but maybe it just makes me feel better. And maybe I hope that in some way it'll inspire other people to do it as well. If I wear it by myself, it lowers my risk like 40%. If I have COVID and if you don't. If you have COVID and I don't, it lowers my risk much less than that. But if we both have it on and we're both practicing social distancing and safety with sanitary conditions of washing hands, using hand sanitizer, our rate goes down to 2%. And that is not just for COVID. That would be for the flu, for colds, for the next SARS virus, the next MERS virus, the next coronavirus that comes through, or maybe something worse, Ebola. There are a ton of things out in the world that are trying to kill us, and we made it really easy. So we can change that. And I guess that brings me to the vaccine. To circle back where I started, I am super happy that people are getting the vaccine. I'm over the cards and the shot posts. I get why people are doing it. They want to be part of something. And I think deep down, part of them says, I want other people to do this because they see me doing it. And that's the part that they try to hone in on, the selflessness of it. But as I've pointed out, there's very little selflessness to go around right now. Really what it comes down to is a look at me. I'm doing this thing, and I don't really care about you. I just want you to look at me doing it. That is all well and good. I am glad that people around me who have health conditions, who are older, who work as frontline workers are getting those things. But not everybody is. I have a lot of friends who work in service, restaurants, now movie theaters that are opening back up, and they don't qualify for the vaccine all the time. And even if they do, they may not know how to get the vaccine. One of my major complaints, and one of the things I pointed out about the South Park vaccination special, which everybody should watch, is that the most frustrating thing of this entire pandemic wasn't being locked away for weeks on end. It wasn't having to give up a life if I had one before. It's the fact that even at the most frustrating government office, the DMV, the place that everyone made fun of for years before this, because it was the slowest, worst place to go. If I walk into the DMV, I grab a ticket, I have a number on it. I look up at the wall or on the ceiling, and there will be a timer there or a clock of some sort, an electronic countdown that will tell me I have A77. Currently, they are serving A7. I have 70 people to wait until I will be seen. So even at the worst government agency, I know where my spot is in line and how long about I'm going to have to wait. But when it comes to this vaccine, I have no idea. I'm hearing from the president that May the 1st, the vaccine will be widely available to everyone. And immediately I'm hearing from my mayor that Los Angeles is going to be an exception. We're not going to be able to give that out to everybody. I'm hearing from the governor that it'll probably be somewhere around late May, early June. Okay, so now we got a zone. That's great. But I'm also hearing from people that I need to be able to show that I'm a California resident, which I'm technically not. I'm still a resident of Maryland. I have my driver's license there. My permanent address is there. Always ready for the fallback because the imposter complex keeps telling me that it's inevitable that I will once again end up on someone's couch on the eastern shore of Maryland. And I could go back to Maryland and get the vaccine because they are in Maryland just letting anyone get it. They have Johnson & Johnson available, which I am fine with taking, and I'll get to that. But I could go back to Maryland and get it. But to do that, I have to risk myself, my life, my health, to get on a plane and travel back to Maryland, and then theoretically travel back because my job is still here. I could go to Florida, I could go to Texas, I could go to some places and get it, Montana, Alaska. I could go to a lot of places and get it because they're just allowing anyone to get it. But again, I'd have to risk my life to do that. And is risking your life to save your life or protect your life really worth it? Yeah, the rate of infection is really low and the chance that I get it is very low. And if you ask average people, they're going to tell you, we beat this thing. It's over. It's not over. It's not over. Thousands of people are getting infected every single day. Hundreds are still dying every single day. And I know that's a downer. And probably most of you who stayed on this long bailed out right there. And it sucks. I know. But the fact of the matter is, hundreds of people are still dying. Right now, 550,000 people have already died. The number that we have died unnecessarily, well, we'll have to calculate that later. Because if we hadn't botched the rollout of the vaccine, if we hadn't loosened restrictions before we were ready for that, before everyone was prepared, maybe that wouldn't be the case. If seniors could be a little less selfish and not go to Florida for spring break just one more year, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But we have an inability to be selfless, and a massive ability to be selfish. And I mean, I went on this rant on the pre-show for the podcast a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't recorded, and I wish it was because I really gave it to Corey. Not that he really cares that much, but I really gave it to him because in the end, my frustration is just not knowing. It's not knowing when. It's give me a tier, give me a number. I don't care if my tier is 7B Gamma 1. I don't care, but at least I can know as we count down through the tiers where I stand. Now I'm having this big question mark. And because I'm the guy who everyone asks advice from, I get to tell everybody how they can sign up for the vaccine. And because in my heart, despite the fact that I have vocally at least said that I've given up the ideals of socialism and communism because it just won't work because of how selfish everybody is. In my heart, that's not true. In my heart, I am Mel Gibson from We Are Soldiers, where step first on the battlefield and I'll be the last one to step off. Because in the end, I don't care. And I don't know how to justify that statement. I told Corey that if I had contracted COVID and died in April, I would not have cared. And the fact of the matter is, truly, I don't care. The value of my own life is essentially nothing. I produce nothing. Looking at the traditional capitalist value system, and even really just any value system, my life is easily replaceable in the cogs of this machine. And there are very few people who depend on me, and very few people who would even mourn the passing. So me dying is not important. What I worry about every single day is what my actions, incidental or purposeful, may cause as a reaction on someone else. That I go to CVS to get soda because I'm addicted to caffeine and it's the one thing that keeps me going. I'm accidentally exposed there, and then I expose all of my friends who don't have the vaccine yet, or I expose my employees who are forced to be there the same way that I am. I am so worried about being the reason that someone or their grandmother or their parents dies that I live a life that is very much like a hermit, and in many ways, very much in terror. Because I'm relatively healthy, and because I haven't looked for an exception, I will just continue to wait until they tell me it's my time. And I will continue to live in terror. So I applaud the people who are going to get the vaccine. I applaud the people who are promoting it and saying it's safe and go get it. I'm really promoting the people who say, I got sick, it sucked, but I still went and got the vaccine. Like I would say you should go get it. Even though it's terrible, you should get it because we're all going to be safer in the end. I will come out of this pandemic with less friends than I went into it with. And I will come out of it with less respect for people than I went into it with because of what I'm seeing and what I've seen for the last year. People who I held in high regard giving me and giving everyone else in this thing that Netflix has that documentary, Pretend It's a City. Let's pretend it's a society and that our actions have an impact on other people. And I am coming out of this with much less respect for people who I had a high regard for before because they act like their petty little bullshit is more important than the greater good. And I haven't done much in my life to serve the greater good. I had always imagined that at this point I would be doing much more. And that's why my life is essentially forfeit. But we should be doing more for each other. And it's upsetting, and it should not be that way. But here we are. So finally, let's turn to the vaccine, because I've been having a lot of arguments about the vaccine. And again, I'm not going to throw statistics at you, but how about let's just look at a 10,000-foot view of the vaccine. And I want to use a metaphor because I think it is a good way for us to kind of break down the key issues when it comes to the vaccine. Let's say that I tell you we have never built a bridge across a gap that is more than a mile. And you say, well, we really need to build a bridge over this gap, and it's 1.25 miles. For years, we study this problem, and it's just functionally we're not able to do it. And, there are people making inroads to maybe making a bridge that will go that far. But at this point, it's just not possible. And then it becomes an emergency that we need to get a bridge built here. And it needs to be done soon. And I tell you, blank check, whatever it takes, find me a way to build that bridge. You can bet that that impossible problem will be solved. Because the thing about it is, if you throw money at a physics or a science project of any kind, if you throw enough money at it, eventually we're going to figure out a solution. And that is how we got the vaccines so very quickly. Because essentially, the world wrote a blank check and said, I will buy this vaccine that doesn't exist. Here is money for the doses. Just go make it. When you take the best people fighting one problem, we get solutions quickly. And it makes me wonder, how quickly could we find a cure for AIDS or cancer or blindness, deafness, any problem that we have? If we could similarly, like the Eye of Sauron, turn everyone's attention on that one problem and give it unlimited funds to try and fight it. And the answer, of course, is that we could. Yeah. it is more profitable to treat cancer, to treat AIDS, to treat any disease than it is to cure it. If you cure it, that's the end. If I figure out a good treatment that keeps you alive for a long time, well, you got to stay alive and working and paying for that cure, that treatment for a long time. And it may look like a cure. You may have no symptoms. You may be, a new word we all learned, asymptomatic. You may even test negative for that disease. But keep in mind, it could always come back. So make sure you keep paying for that treatment. So yeah, we could solve a lot of problems. We could cure a lot of diseases, and we don't. But then we were faced with something that was so devastating that it was shutting down the entire world. And we realized if we don't spend the money and the time and the expertise, there may not be money, time, or expertise later to worry about it. So we spent it and we found it. The technology was already in development. They were already looking for a SARS vaccine, and they kind of modified the programs that they were working on and to point it at coronavirus. And it's very technical, but essentially two of the vaccines, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, work on mRNA, which means that they're focused on a very small bit of DNA, half of DNA, that is based on a protein on the outside of the coronavirus cell. And it's just that key piece that connects to our body. That is the one Lego that's looking for a pair Lego inside our body. And when they meet up, that's how infection happens. And what we figured out is if we can make a fake bit to fit in there, that when the coronavirus comes looking, it looks like there's nowhere for it to plug in, and it goes out of the body. And that is a oversimplified explanation of the mRNA vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not mRNA. It's more of a traditional vaccine, which means it's just going to give your body a lot of deactivated virus and say, here's the thing you need to worry about. This is strange. You've never seen it before, but instead of it attacking you while you're trying to figure it out and fight it, it will just be inert. And you can figure out how it works. You can dissect it. You can learn how to fight it. So if you ever come into contact with some real alive one that's going to fight you while you're exposed to it, that you'll already be prepared to fight it off. And that works really well too. That's how we've done vaccines for hundreds of years. And in reality, probably thousands of years. We just got the science behind why it worked hundreds of years ago. And I know that there are people who are saying, it was rushed. They pushed it through. You're right. They got it done faster than ever before. That's what money and expertise buys you. And it was pushed through FDA. It was pushed through the services of every government around the world to get into people's arms. And that may cause some reactions. In fact, I think the likelihood is, I think they're saying 2 out of 1,000 people will have a negative reaction, and 1 in 100,000 people will have a really bad negative reaction. And there are websites that you can actually clock in all of your negative reactions so they can keep track of them. To those people who have, or 1 in 100,000, which by the way adds up when you're talking about 7 billion people possibly getting this vaccine, it adds up. 1 in 100,000 when it comes to Americans is 100,000 people? 30,000? Math not my strong suit. Understand it, can't really do it. Something like that. But let's say it's 30,000. That's a lot of people to have a serious reaction. And 2 in 1,000? That's a huge number. And I feel really bad for the people who do that. But again, let's act with a little bit of selflessness and say, you have a negative reaction. Yes. But you're also now immune from the virus. Also, yes. And you're helping us to build a herd immunity, which will become essentially blanket immunity for everyone. Yes. So I'm sorry that you had to suffer. I'm sorry that you went through whatever it is that you went through. But it's for the greater good. Men from every town across this country stormed a beach that they could not pronounce so that we could get fascism pushed back across Europe because it was a threat to the world. And many of them, I'm sure, were saying the same things that people are saying now. Like, what if it's me? What if it's me that catches a bullet tomorrow morning? It sucks. And I'm here because a guy who was there fighting didn't catch a bullet and came back and had kids who had kids. But for all of those that died, for the 4,000 that died in the first morning off Calais, like, your sacrifice is for the greater good. Now, it's a completely different video to talk about how fascism was pushed back in Germany, in Europe in general, and now we welcome it on the streets. In fact, just yesterday, a fascist terrorist murdered 8 people in Atlanta, and we are on the verge of fighting fascism on our own streets. But again, that's another video. In the end, sacrifice for the greater good. And we've lost that sentiment. There's too much selfishness. There's too much focus on me. There's too much look at me culture. And here I am sitting in the dark shooting a video talking about look at me. The irony is not lost on me. But to those of you who say, I don't know what's in the vaccine, very true. You also don't know what's in the potato chips. You don't know what's in the soda that you put in. You don't know what's in a lot of stuff that you put in your body. You get it from somebody that you say you can trust. If you can trust McDonald's, you can trust Pfizer or AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson, who's been powdering your butt since you were less than a year old, probably. You've used Johnson & Johnson products daily since the day you were born, I can almost guarantee you. If not daily, weekly, because they own so much. They have such a wide-ranging product line. And now they're trying to give you something that will not necessarily keep you from getting sick, but will keep you from getting super sick so that you're in the hospital and will keep you from dying. That is the guarantee. That's what we're looking at now. 100% effective in stopping severe illness that leads to hospitalization and death. Now, I'll take that. And for the other vaccines, it's a new technology. I understand there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some negative things. For the vast majority of people, they're going to have no problems and they're going to be immune. And I think it is such a foolish argument for people to even try to put up to say, they are trying to put a microchip in your arm. And especially that Bill Gates is trying to put a microchip in your arm. Because here's the thing, folks. Bill Gates is a really smart guy. And I know a lot of you who are watching this and people who will never watch it come to me because you say, hey, Rob, you're a smart guy. And I am a smart guy. And I'm not less of a smart guy because I look for the science, because I ask the questions. And when I get the answers, I know how to critically think about them. But let's critically think about that question. Bill Gates is a smart guy. In fact, Bill Gates, not as smart as me, did a lot more with it, has a lot more money, arguably more successful, but by the numbers, not smarter than me, IQ-wise. Street smarts, also probably not. That's neither here nor there. But what Bill Gates knows is there is no point in spending hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a microchip to put in your body, because the vast majority of us, me included, carry a microchip, a tracker, a wallet, with us at all times. In the age of Corona, I have not scanned my bank card in months. I have my phone with my pay app and I touch it. I need to send somebody money. I don't get cash of an ATM. I'm sending PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, depending on what I'm buying. I have a GPS that is always running. I have social media apps that will be able to use their algorithm to figure out what I want before I even know what I want. They don't need to microchip us. We are carrying around microphones that are listening at all times. Hey, Google. It's always listening to us. They don't need to microchip us.
Sorry, I don't understand.
He doesn't understand. They don't need to microchip us. We are in the age of 1984. Big Brother, though, isn't hiding behind paintings or in televisions. We carry him with us every single day, and we'd be lost without him in our pocket. And that all leads back to my thoughts about people who are getting vaccinated and my frustration with them, because there's a lot of people who have been stringent, strong during the entire pandemic. Now they're getting vaccinated, and now they're starting to get a little loosey-goosey with the rules. I don't want to say it's their fault. I think that everyone is looking for an excuse to get back to life as normal, and people are reading things and they're not understanding them. So can I give you just a brief lesson on virology? So this is a brief lesson on virology. A virus is tiny. It's a little bit of RNA, which is essentially just part of the instructions on how to build something biologically. Unlike a bacteria, which is essentially larger and really a living thing of its own. It's an entire phylum in the animal kingdom, bacteria. Viruses don't really exist in the animal kingdom, the living things, because they're not alive. They are instructions, and their goal is to get into some cell that they can then replicate those instructions and spread them out to more cells. Now, there has been, as there often is in evolution, a race between the very complicated system that is the human body and the very simple thing that is a virus. You have been exposed to several coronaviruses, likely in your life. As that competition continues, evolution and adaptation finds a way in both directions. And that virus has mutated so that that little mRNA protein that bonds with the body has changed just enough, mutated just enough, that our body doesn't recognize it. And that is novel coronavirus 2019, or CoV SARS-2. Now, if you are exposed to a single particle of that virus. Can you become infected? Most of you are probably saying no. And the logical, the truthful answer is no. But the scientific answer is I can't say for sure. Because if that little bit of that one little piece of code was to enter the body of someone with zero immune system, they could become infected. Now, someone with a poor but substantive immune system like myself is likely to fight off that one little bit. It's going to take up a higher viral load at exposure in order to overwhelm the initial and continuing defenses of my body and lead to an infection. Now, someone who is younger and healthier and likely better looking than me, it will take an even higher viral load at exposure in order to cause that infection. But even that person who has a better immune system and, again, better looking than me, even if they were exposed to less on the right day under the right circumstances, they could even be infected. Because in the end, it's sets of instructions whose only goal is to replicate. And if it finds a way to replicate in secret while your body is summoning the troops and getting them ready, or calling the firemen when they really need a paramedic, or calling the police who then shoots healthy cells rather than taking down the virus, assuming that the body's police are something like American police, then if any of that happens, a perfectly healthy person can be fully infected from a low viral load at exposure. And I've had several people talk to me about this Columbia medical school study that said that at 1 week, lower viral loads, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to get into the science, but essentially what it says is that someone with the vaccine, or maybe it's somebody without the vaccine, nonetheless, they're doing a viral load test at 1 week. And basically it says the argument that I continue to hear from people is if you're exposed to less at exposure, that your viral load is likely to be less a week out, and therefore you are less sick. And to you, I say that is not how it works. Because what we think of as sick, generally speaking, is not the virus. What we think of sick is our body's reaction to the virus. When you get a virus, you're likely to get a fever. The fever is not caused by the virus. The fever is caused by your body responding to the virus. People are likely to get a cough or a runny nose when you get a virus. Both of those are the body reacting to the virus and not the virus itself. Coughs that may tighten the chest and scar the lungs can also just be the body's reaction. Now, once the infection sets in deep enough, the infection itself will start causing damage. But what we typically think of as being sick is, generally speaking, reactions of the body to the existence of the virus, not to the virus itself. And as I said, whether you're exposed to a little or exposed to a lot, all of the things being equal, yes, higher viral load at exposure will make you sick, is more likely to make you sick than a lower viral load. But you can't say other things being equal, because my immune system today and tomorrow are two different things. They are not the same. And my immune system and your immune system are not the same thing. So different viral loads at different exposure times in different circumstances are almost impossible to track. What we can say with certainty is that although it is a probable zero that if we both wear a mask and we both have the vaccine, that we won't share an infection, it is not a statistical scientific zero, because studies are still being done. And there is some encouraging numbers, there's some encouraging evidence, but what we know right now as a fact for viruses, not for this virus, but for viruses in general, and maybe even specifically coronaviruses, is immunity to a virus through an antiviral or through a vaccine is not sterilizing immunity. That's a big word. It's a big phrase. I don't want to dive into all of the things that it means, but essentially, what most people think of is I'm going to get a vaccine shot in my arm, and somehow that is going to coat either my respiratory system or my entire body with this antiviral armor. And whenever COVID comes around, it's going to bounce right off. And that is not really what we are talking about with these vaccines, because sterilizing immunity is very difficult. Now, will an mRNA vaccine give sterilizing immunity? It's possible. It's new technology and we don't know. But what we know from virology and from vaccines in general is they do not offer, generally speaking, sterilizing immunity. What they do offer is symptomatic immunity, meaning if I get the vaccine and I am exposed to the coronavirus, the body is able to fight off the virus before it can lead to a widespread infection that will lead to serious health consequences or death. That's 100% certain with all three vaccines. More important, and with a higher rate of success for Pfizer and Moderna, if I am exposed, I will be asymptomatic at worst, meaning that I might show positive on a test, but I won't even know because I won't have symptoms. Now, even better than that, perhaps, when exposed to the virus, my body will expel that virus after a time, not leading to viral shedding. Viral shedding, of course, being the infection of cells with a virus and then the shedding off of new viral cells over time that can lead to infection of other people. But instead, I breathe in the coronavirus, it gets into my lungs, my body fights it off over a short period of time, I show no signs of infection, and I then expel a limited amount of the virus back out into the world. Hopefully into a tissue or my sleeve or a mask where it's trapped, and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. But as long as people who have vaccines are going out to bars or going out to restaurants or going out to movie theaters and thinking they don't have to wear masks, because again, very selfish, then they have a chance of being exposed there or there or there and having an exposure to the coronavirus, not infect them, but take residence, temporary residence in their body. Instead of treating their body like a rented home, which it might if it gets into mine, treating it like an overnight stay at a hotel. Really short term, not going to make a huge mess of the place, but you're going to know it was there. And you might, because of a test might show that it was there. More importantly, if that person then comes around me, an unvaccinated person, their temporary, asymptomatic, non-infection has a chance of turning into a very real, very deadly infection in my body. And again, I kind of did this in order for a reason, because I don't care. I truly do not care. I have thought for a long time that my life is forfeit. But the idea that someone I know might accidentally infect me and then lead me to unknowingly infect others, and all of this because we could not stay in quarantine for a few more weeks, which is what they're telling us, May 1st, right? It's frustrating. And I had someone offer this argument. So what are you saying? You want us all to stay locked down? That you would have preferred us to go through quarantine, just locked down the entire time, shut everything down, shut the economy down? Yes. Any argument that you're going to make to me is going to involve either your desire to not be stuck with people or in a place, or that there is an economic cost. And I look at 550,000 people dead. I look at several hundred people still dying every day. And I say, are you making an argument that economic loss is more important than these people's lives? And you can say no. But that is not true. Because any argument that's greater than or less restrictive than go home, stay inside, let's cut this virus down exactly where it stands, and damn the economy, will figure it out, means lives are less important than money. And this is no new discovery for me. I've known for a long time that American society, Western society as a whole, means money is more important than lives. But to hear that argument come out of some people's mouths who I never thought it would is hard. It's hard to hear. And I know some of you are just churning up an argument right now, but I want you to analyze. Is this argument at its most base, if we reduce that fraction down to its least common denominator, is it anything more than desire or economy, money, is more important than human life? If you're going to argue to me now that now, at the very end of this, where I see people country and worldwide heading back out, carefree because they have the vaccine, not understanding the impact of how viruses work, not understanding basic science, let alone advanced virology that is the realm where we are now. It all boils down the least common denominator: selfishness and money. And those things being more important than human life. And again, I could care less about my life. I'm not talking about my life. My life is already forfeit. What about your grandmother's life? What about their grandmother's life, or their grandmother's life, or their parents' life, or their little sister's life, or their friend's life when their friend has an autoimmune disorder, or someone with heart problems, or someone who is overweight, which is the reason you can get the vaccine now? Any of these things that are complicating issues to COVID, You may be going out to a bar for a night of fun, and you may be sentencing someone to weeks and months of the worst suffering imaginable. Go to a gym, which is basically open in every state now, and grab the heaviest weight that you can pick up off the floor. Just one you can barely move. And then I want you to lay down on the floor and sit that thing on your chest. And then I want you to lay there for 1 minute, 60 seconds, and just breathe with that weight on your chest. And I want you to imagine that your night of going out, going to the bar, going to sit at an outside dining area with friends is worth someone spending the last weeks, months maybe, of their life, but certainly the last few days and hours of their life, feeling like that, not being able to breathe, struggling to have basic function until they just can't fight anymore, and they mentally and their body physically give out and they die. And that person means something to someone. That person is a brother, a father, a son, a mother, a sister, a daughter, an aunt, an uncle. That is a friend. That is somebody. Is that more important than you going out? Or is finally getting out on the town and going and having drinks with your friends and going places and doing things, is it worth that? There are many things in my life where I've asked myself the question, is it worth the cost? And for many, if not most of those things, I've paid it gladly. But for this thing, pleasure, selfishness, greed, essentially any one of the 7 deadly sins, which is what I see as being the inspiration for all of this in exchange for human life. And 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when we're going through this again or coming out of something similar like this again, will you look back and wonder what your body count is? Will you ask yourself, how many people, directly or indirectly, have died because I needed to go out with my friends, because I just couldn't stay inside for a few more weeks, because I got my vaccine and I don't care about the rest of them? Or I got my vaccine, but I didn't understand all of it, and maybe I should have. And I like to think there will be a lot of reflection and self-work after this, but I don't think that there will be. I think that we are likely to just chug along, continuing to do the same thing we've always done. And that's why I have absolutely no faith in socialism ever making changes in America, nor that, despite my constant belief in it, that revolution will ever take place. But that is a video for another day. It's enough depressing talk for me. If you've hung out this long, thank you. We'll get back to the funny, or only slightly depressing, thought experiments very soon. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks.